Kaziev and the Ohr Natan community on this very special night that you are all involved in bringing more Kedusha and Tahara to bring holiness and purity into the Queens community. It's very interesting. The lady who just introduced me told you that my wife, Mrs. Miriam Krohn, taught her daughters at Sheva High School. When I told my wife about the topic that we are going to speak about tonight, about building a mikveh and bringing holiness, she mentioned something that I never thought about. It's just so incredible. All of us know that there are many liquids in this world. We have the liquid, which is wine. Many of us enjoy drinking a glass of wine. We have the liquid, which is milk. We have the liquid, which is oil. And we have the liquid, which is water. There is a way that water is different than all the others that we mentioned. Wine, milk, and oil. Nobody can make water. Only Hashem. Isn't that amazing? Nobody can make water. We can make wine, we can make oil, and we can produce milk, but we can't make water. That is the liquid of Hashem. And maybe that's why when we immerse in a mikveh, it has to be only Hashem's liquid, which is the holy liquid of water. And that's created by Hashem himself. And that's why it brings us to such Kedusha and Tahara. That's why it brings us to holiness and to purity. And I'll tell you something else which is amazing. The word mikvah is spelled Mem, Kuf, Vav, He. If you turn around those letters, it is the letter and the word Kuma, which means to stand up and to be high and to be elevated. And that's what happens when a person goes to the mikvah. Whether it's a man or whether it's a woman, the person is transferred to a higher level. A person walks into the mikvah, not holy, and comes out a higher person. And that's why when somebody wants to become a Jewish person, somebody wants to become a ger or giores, they have to go to the mikvah. Because from the mikvah they become kumah. They become a higher person. Before the Jewish people went to Har Sinai to receive the Torah, every man had to go to the mikvah. Every woman had to be immersed in water to get that elevation to become higher. When we want to use dishes or glasses, and it was created, it was made by people that are not Jewish, it has to be put into a mikvah. Why? Because the mikvah elevates us. The mikvah is kumah. It elevates us and brings us to a higher level. The Kohen Gadol, 5 different times on Yom Kippur, he had to go to the mikvah. So why is it when somebody becomes a convert, before we went to Har Sinai, when we want to elevate our dishes so that we should be able to use them, the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur, why does he have to be immersed in water? You know why? Because that's the liquid. That's what the world was before anything else. The world was filled with water. And Hashem had to separate. The Torah tells us, Vayomer Elakim Yehi Rokiah, there should be a heaven, a sky. B'soich hamayim, v'himavdu b'mayim l'moyim. There was upper waters and lower waters. Could you imagine? The whole world was filled with water. But Hashem wanted there should be growth. Hashem wanted there should be a world. So he had to separate the water from above from the water below. In other words, it was only through the separations of the waters, through that the world could blossom and grow. And when somebody enters into a mikvah, they also have the possibility to blossom and to grow and to become somebody special. So I want to tell you a fabulous story. Many years ago, the Maggid of Yerushalayim, Rabbi Shlomo Shradron, that the person who introduced me spoke about, he was known as the Maggid of Yerushalayim. And he knew a famous person, his name was Rav Baruch Yadler. And Rav Baruch worked with hundreds and hundreds of children, young men, young women, bringing them to Yiddishkeit. Many of them had gone off the derech in Eretz Yisrael, and he would go to kibbutzim, he would go to places, and he would inspire these children, get them involved in organizations, get them involved in yeshivot and Beis Yaakovs, so that they would become religious. So he understood children like nobody else. Unfortunately, as he got much older, he got sickly and he ended up in the hospital. And many, many people would come visit him because he was a very famous person and he had done so much good for so many people. But he had a roommate, and let's call the roommate Yechiel. And Yechiel's children came to visit him every day, and they were very special. And one day Rabbi Yadler said to Yechiel, you know, I know children. I've been working with children all my life. Your children are very holy and very special. Tell me, there must be a reason. What did you do to have such special children? So at first Yechiel didn't want to answer, you know, he was embarrassed. But he said, tell me, I know there had to be a special story that Hashem blessed you with such children. Because as I say, I know children, there must have been something special. And Yechiel said, I'll tell you why I believe that we merited having such special children. He said, you see, I came from the Holocaust. I am a survivor. I was 19, 20 years old. I survived the camps. And I was taken with many, many people. We were taken to Turkey and to the Balkans. And finally we came to Eretz Yisrael. And then we were put into an irreligious kibbutz. I was not religious at all. And there were many, many young men and young women that were brought to Eretz Yisrael. And one day I met a young woman, and we began talking, and I started thinking, you know something? She's a nice girl. Maybe I could build my life with her. Maybe I could start all over. I don't have parents. I don't have anyone. Everybody was killed in Germany. Maybe I could marry this girl and we'll build a family. And sure enough, one night we were going out and I said to her, you know, you're very special. What do you think? What do you say? Maybe we could get married. And she said to me, I want to tell you something. I never told you this. I know you for a little while, but I never thought that you would ask me to marry me. But if you want to marry me, I must tell you a little story. And he said, what is it? She said, I too, you know, came from Germany. And the Germans came into our home one night and they were taking us all away. I was 7 years old. I was very frightened. And my mother came over to me. And she held my hand, and she held my head, and she was crying. And she kissed me. And she said, my dear child, I don't know if I'm ever going to see you again. But I want you to remember these two words. I want you to say over these two words every day. Just remember, I can't explain to you what it means. And one day you're going to promise me that you're going to go to a rabbi. And the rabbi will explain to you what these two words mean. And whatever he tells you, I want you to promise me you're going to keep those laws. I didn't know what my mother was talking about. I loved my mother. And I said, Mama, tell me, what are those two words? What words do you want me to remember that I should go to the rabbi when I get older and he'll explain to me what it is? And she kissed me again and she was crying. And she said, my dear child, just remember these two words. Taharat HaMishpacha. And I said, Mommy, what does it mean? She said, I can't tell you. I can't explain it. You'll never understand at this age. But just promise me you're going to remember those words. And I always repeated those words. I didn't know what they meant, Taharat HaMishpacha. I didn't know what it was. And then after the war, I went to a rabbi. And I said to the rabbi, before we parted, my mother and I never saw her again. She told me that I should ask you what these words mean. Taharat HaMishpacha, she said there were a group of laws that I should keep, and I promised her that I would keep it. Tell me, Rabbi, what does it mean? And the rabbi explained to me about mikvah, and about separation, and about reunion, and all those things. And I just want to tell you, she said to this fellow who wanted to marry her, that if you agree to keep these laws, I'll marry you. But if not, then I can't marry you because I promised my mother I would keep these laws. And he was going crazy because he never heard of this kind of stuff. He was not religious. And he said, I need 3 days to think about it. And after 3 days, he's telling Rabbi Yadol the story. I came back to this girl and I said to her, you know something? You're worth it. Whatever it is, I'm going to observe these laws together with you. And they got married in this irreligious kibbutz. And he says to Rabbi Yadler, many times we had to go to the mikvah. We had to sneak out of the kibbutz and go to a nearby town because everybody would laugh at us. Nobody would expect us to keep these laws here in this irreligious kibbutz. And then eventually, we were able to get out of the kibbutz. We moved to another place. And of course, we continued and we became religious. And that's how I believe that I have these special children. And Rabbi Yadlo said, there's no question, because mikvah brings kedusha. And if you had Mesirat Nefesh, and your wife was able to remember from childhood those 2 words, and kept those laws, I have no doubt that that's the reason that your children are so holy and so special. And so I want to tell you something amazing. If you take a look in the Torah, tonight, maybe read the story about Adam and Chava, and you will see something amazing. The Torah tells us that Hashem put Adam and Chava in Gan Eden, and He told them, you can have everything, except you can't eat from that one tree, the Eitz Hadas. And then in the middle of the story, the Torah tells us that there was a river in Eden. And many commentaries ask, what does that have to do with the story? Hashem is telling Adam and Chava they are in Gan Eden, they shouldn't eat from the tree, and then the Nachash came and spoke to Chava. We all know the story. And he convinced her to touch it and then to eat from it, and she gave to Adam. But what's got to do with this river that's in Eden? And you would not believe what the Zohar says. The Zohar says that all the water that ever came, and all the rivers and all the lakes, it all started from that river in Gan Eden. And after Adam did the Aveirah, and Hashem sent him out of Gan Eden, that happened on a Friday. He was created on Friday, he did the Aveirah on Friday. And the Zohar tells us that on Sunday, he went back into that river. And he immersed himself in that river and he was crying and he said, Hashem, please accept my tshuva. I'm sorry for what I did. Please accept my tshuva. And the Zohar and the Baal Shem Tov and the Vilna Gaon, they all say that Hashem extended his hand to Adam HaRishon and he said, it's not going to be the same, but I do forgive you. And just remember, you went into this river and you cried for teshuvah, and you became holy when you came out of the river. Anybody who ever goes into a river like that, anybody who goes into a mikvah, will also be transformed and be elevated. Now I want to show you something that you're not going to believe. Something that I am sure you never thought about. We know that the first 3 words in the Torah, Bereshis, Bara, Elokim. Think for a moment, what are the three letters, the last letters of those three words? Bereshis. Somebody tell me, what's the last letter of the word Bereshis? Taf. What's the last letter of bara? Aleph. And what's Elokim? Mem. What's Aleph, Mem, Taf? What word is that? Emet, which is truth. That's the signature of Hashem. Hashem is truth. Moshe emes, Vitorosa emes, Hashem is emes. And the Gemara says, you know why Hashem is emes? You know why you spell it that way? Aleph is the first letter, Mem is the middle letter, and Tov is the last letter. From the beginning of time till the end of time, Hashem is always going to be here. That's why his signature is emes. Aleph, the first letter, Mem, the second letter, Tov, the third letter. Mem, the middle letter. How much is Mem equal? Anybody know? How much? 40. Mem is equal 40. Anything that has to do with 40 changes a person. Do you know how much water there's supposed to be in the mikvah? 40 sa'ah. That changes a person from tamei to tahor, to being pure. How many days was Moshe Rabbeinu in heaven before he got to Torah? 40 days. That's again Mem. How many days was the Mabul that Hashem changed the world? He didn't want to have the world anymore, but he changed it after Noah. How many days was the Mabul? 40 days and 40 nights. And how many days were those spies in Eretz Yisrael? Again, 40 days. Now watch this, you could go crazy. When I first saw this, I could not believe it. You have to fasten your seatbelt. Emes is Aleph, Mem, Tov. What's the beginning of life? What does Aleph, Mem mean? Aim. What is aim? A mother. That's the beginning of life. Before a mother has a child, she goes to the mikvah. That's the holiness. What's the end of life? Look at this, the two middle letters, Mem and Tov. Met, that's death. When a person dies, they also make a tahara. He's in the mikvah, she's in the mikvah. And they wash the body. So Emes is aim, that's the beginning of life. Mem is the transition. And then Taf, Mem, Taf, that's the end of life. And it begins and ends with the mikvah. Mikvah begins with what letter? Mem. Again, that's 40. So the word Emes, which shows the true Kedusha of Klal Yisrael, talks about the mother, Aleph Mem, and it ends with Mem Taf, which is Mes, which is at the end of life, but also it's mikvah. That's how important it is to have a mikvah in a community, because it brings us Kedusha from the beginning to the end of life. So I just want to end with this fabulous story, because we know that through a woman going through the mikvah and then having a child afterwards, the child is holy. The child has been born with Kedusha. So listen to this amazing story. This story happened in 1980. And there was an Israeli soldier. His name was Gadi. That's not his real name. You'll see I have to change it, but we're going to call him Gadi. And Gadi was on patrol outside Ramallah. Ramallah is an Arab town. And unfortunately, he was in his Jeep, and an Arab shot at him. An Arab sniper shot at him, and he fell out of the Jeep bleeding. The Arab thought he killed him, but he wasn't really dead. But because the Arab thought that he killed him, he left the area and he left the soldier on the highway. Another boy, a young man, Shlomo, was driving by, and he sees an Israeli soldier on the highway bleeding. He runs out of his car, brings this soldier into his own car, and he calls a hospital that's nearby. And he says, I'm coming with a soldier. I don't know if he's dead or alive, but I know he's bleeding profusely. Get the emergency room ready. I'm coming. with this soldier. I have no idea who he is. I have no idea if he's alive. And Shlomo drives as fast as he can, and he runs to the emergency room. They bring the car, all the doctors are ready. They take Gadi, and they have to give him emergency blood transfusions. And there's such a tumult, the whole hospital, everybody's trying to save this Gadi's life. And of course, Shlomo is such a sincere fellow. He doesn't need the credit. He's not going to hang around. You know, he brought this boy, Gadi, this soldier. He hopes that they save his life. And Shlomo left, and he went home. Meanwhile, the hospital is working on Gadi. They were able to save his life. Of course, he was in critical condition in the beginning. And they take his name tag, and they take the information, they put it in the computer, and they find out what division he's in, and they find out where his parents are. His parents are in Ashdod. They're religious people. They come running to this hospital from Ashdod. And finally, the mother of Gadi says, "Who saved my son? Who brought him in?" And the doctor said, "I'll tell you the truth. We don't know. Some kid, some young guy, your son's age, Gadi's age, he found him on the highway, but we were so busy finding how we're going to save him that we didn't even ask who brought him in, and he disappeared." Well, the mother of Gadi was so in awe. Who saved her son? She wanted to find out. How was she going to find out if the hospital staff didn't even know? So eventually, Baruch Hashem, he was healed, and he went back home to live, to rest in Ashdod. And this family, Gadi's family, owned a grocery store in Ashdod. And they put up a big sign. Anybody who has any information about who brought Gadi to the hospital, please call us. The sign was there for months. Everybody saw the sign, but nobody had any information. A year later, a lady walks into the store. This lady used to live in Ashdod, but she hadn't been in Ashdod in a year. She comes into the store, she sees this big sign. Anybody who has information, who brought Gadi to the hospital, please come forward. This lady was Shlomo's mother. But she didn't say anything right away. She remembered a year ago, her son Shlomo told her that he saw a soldier on the highway and he brought the soldier into the hospital, but he didn't want any credit. He's a fine young man, and he went back to wherever he was going. So Shlomo's mother says to the lady behind the counter, "Can I speak with you? Can we go into a private area? Listen to this, you will not believe it." They go into a private area in the room behind the store. And Shlomo's mother says, "Your son is Gadi? Your son was that soldier? I just want to tell you that a year ago, my son Shlomo came home and he told me that he saw a soldier lying on the highway, and he decided that he's going to try to save him. He didn't know if he was dead or alive. He picked him up in the car and he brought him to the hospital. And it was this and this hospital. Was that the hospital that your son Gadi was taken?" She said, "Yeah, that's exactly it." So Gadi's mother said, your son is the one who saved my son. I'm positive it's got to be. That's the same time about a year ago that it happened. And you're telling me now what hospital?" And Shlomo's mother looks at Gadi's mother and says, "Take a look at me. Look at me closely. Do you recognize me?" She says, "How do I know you? What do you mean?" She says, "How old is your son Gadi?" He says, 21. She says, "You don't remember when you were expecting Gadi? We were both in the same doctor's office. And I wanted to have an abortion because I already had 2 children. And you were a religious woman, and you said to me, don't abort your child. Every child is holy. Every child is special. and you called me, and you followed up. I tell you I was going to have an abortion. The only reason I didn't have the abortion was because of you. Because of you, Gadi's mother, you saved my son Shlomo. And now Shlomo saved your son Gadi. Could you believe that? That's what happens by the Kedusha and the holiness of every Jewish child. When a parent goes to the mikveh, there's a blessing. Mikveh is kumah. That's the exact same letters. We elevate ourselves. That's why men go to the mikveh before Yom Kippur. Many men go even every Erev Shabbat. There are some Hasidic people who go every day because mikveh is kumah. And that's what all of you are doing tonight. When you give money and you make sure that a community mikveh is going to be built, kumah, you're elevating Queens, you're elevating New York, you're elevating the United States, you're elevating the Jewish people. Hashem should bless every single one of you that's going to make a donation, that you are really the mothers of Klal Yisrael. It once occurred to me, why are mothers in Klal Yisrael called Aim, Aleph Men? Because they started with Adam, and they're going to bring us to Mashiach. Hashem should bless each and every one of you, that you should give as you never gave before for the mikveh, so that kumah, we should all be elevated and live lives that our children should be able to go to schools of Kedusha, Beis Yaakovs, Yeshivot. Let's get them out of the public schools. There are thousands of children in public schools. We can't do that anymore. We have to have children of Kedusha. And when you have children of Kedusha, then they do wonderful things like Shlomo did. Hashem should bless all of you. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for listening.
God bless you, Rav Paysach Krohn. Огромное спасибо. Мы получили огромнейший заряд. We were so inspired by your speech tonight. God bless you. Thank you very much. And I'm sure with Hashem's help, tonight we're going to finish the fundraising for the mikveh in Briarwood, Queens. Thank you again.